Welcome back. This is part 2 of the final EA Peace Report for 2018, where we'll be looking at some monumental international moments of peace. If we had to choose which country made the biggest peace waves this year, it would have to be North and South Korea, Ethiopia and Eritrea, South Sudan and Yemen. In April, the world watched with bated breath as the presidents of North and South Korea embraced in the first inter-Korea summit in 6 years. Big decisions to bring about peace and unity between the sibling countries were made that day. And since then, we've seen both sides act on the agreement they made on that memorable day. They entered into the Winter Olympics as one nation. North Korea held a summit with the US to discuss denuclearization. Phone lines were opened. South Korea's huge K-pop blasting speakers at the DMZ were taken down. Citizens were permitted to cross the border to visit long-lost family members. And recently, soldiers from each side of the DMZ crossed the border into each other's territory in peace. Their only mission was to check if the guard posts on the opposite sides of the DMZ had indeed been demolished as reported. Ethiopia and Eritrea had a similar experience. After 20 years of conflict, the process of bringing about peace began early this year. At the helm of this turn of events was Ethiopia's new Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He facilitated and pushed his nation to relinquish the town of Badme, the cause of their war, and soon a peace deal was signed. Since then, the borders have been opened and many military troops removed. Phone lines were opened, flights between the two countries were permitted. They even hosted a peace run together. The seeds of peace did not end there though. Eritrea reached out to Somalia in a meeting to discuss future diplomatic efforts in July. Peace came to South Sudan when President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar signed a ceasefire and power-sharing deal. The conflict in South Sudan was a result of a power struggle between President Kiir and Riek Machar, while Machar was still vice president. For years, other nations intervened to attempt to bring about peace in South Sudan, but it wasn't long before the peace deals collapsed. This time, the leaders have shown their dedication to achieving and sustaining peace in their country. Speaking of such dedication and heart, former Nobel Peace Prize recipient Leymah Gbowee of Liberia was awarded the 2018 Bonn International Democracy Prize in November in recognition of her efforts towards human rights in Liberia and women's rights across the globe. The Nobel Peace Prize this year was awarded to 2 members of the global society who have worked towards ending sexual and gender-based violence in their respective fields. DRC surgeon Denis Mukwege and Yazidi activist Nadia Murada were honored for their fight against the use of sexual violence as weapons of war and armed conflict. And lastly, Yemen. It was just at the beginning of the month that peace talks began. The war that started 4 years ago between the country's government and Houthi rebels has placed Yemen's need for humanitarian assistance as one of the most dire in the world. The opposing sides agreed to a ceasefire over Hudaida within just 2 weeks of the talks, stating that armed forces from both sides would be withdrawn from the area, allowing humanitarian aid to get in. They also agreed to a prisoner exchange. And that is the Peace Report Roundup of the year. Join us again in the new year as we bring you the seeds of peace that are sprouting across the globe. We believe next year will be a good one for our global community. You're watching EA. Happy New Year. Spread the word.